Hello and welcome to Ben's first episode of his music review series, my music review series. I don't know if I should speak in the third person or first person while recording this. Forgive me if you hear any laughter in the background. I have some guests listening in on my first attempt of this. Anyway, dive right into it. Today we're going to go over The Waterfall Part 2 by My Morning Jacket. This is My Morning Jacket's 8th studio album. Came out 5 years since their last studio album, which is The Waterfall Part 1. They had enough material from their previous release that they knew they were going to release a second album. I think what stands out most to me on this one is I liked it a lot better than Waterfall 1, and I don't know if that's because I listened to this album with a little bit more of an active ear. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's because it just has a little more variety than the Waterfall Part 1, and I'm surprised that most of these tracks actually didn't make it onto the original Waterfall album. I'll just do a track-by-track review of each song, drop any comments of things that you disagree with, agree with, didn't like about the album, or something else that you'd like to hear me review, hoping to make this series grow into something pretty nice. Obviously, not going to eclipse some of the bigger accounts out there, but this is just for my own sanity and to put out there into the internet world. So let's get to it. Album opens up with Spinning My Wheels. Immediately, I thought that this song had a really nice full sound to it, which is something that My Morning Jacket is great at. I think particularly in their live sound is that fullness. They don't do anything technically impressive when it comes to their instrument playing. His lyric writing, Jim James, is gorgeous in some of his songs, but I think what really sets him apart is that they just totally encapsulate you in their noise and their fullness, and I feel like that really gets felt right in this opening track that I didn't feel at all in the first Waterfall album. Really nice harmonies on this track, and it captures his voice really nicely. I could hear his lyrics, which I think sometimes because he sings in that really high-pitched falsetto and moans that you can't really understand what the heck he's saying, but in this one I was able to pick a few of the lyrics out of it a little bit better. I do have to go back to this album and actually have a track-by-track lyric listing. I don't think that's even out yet, but once I have that, maybe I'll dive into it and it will have a different impression for what I like more and what I didn't like. But for this one I really liked it, and I particularly like the outro on it with a really heavy bass line outro. And I think that that's something that sets apart a good album from a great album is the outros. Shout out to Dan Atkins. I know he pointed that out to me. And it's really true. Like these tracks that really have those spacey, hypnotic outro tracks tend to be the stronger albums and the ones that kind of just fade out or cut short. Track 2, Still Thinking, immediately made me think of Decemberus, kind of how it marches along. I don't know if you're familiar with Picturesque, or someone that they have that as a shanty on it. I forget the name of it, but it kind of has that like march along to it. The chorus remind me of like a movie soundtrack and like a mediocre indie film. Not my favorite. Remind me of the Muppets a little bit, which doesn't surprise me knowing that Jim James is a huge Kermit the Frog and Muppet fan. When I saw him do his solo acoustic tour, he did Rainbow Connection. So it's definitely inspired by kind of that like poppy, marchy sound. Although it does take a turn on the dime towards the outro, which I thought was really cool, and locks into this kind of Pink Floyd saxophone feeling, spacey sound. Again, something that wasn't really on this previous album of theirs, Waterfall 1 at all, that I really liked on this one. Climbing the Ladder is a bit more of a return to their southern rock sound, but again with maybe this little bit of a Muppety, poppy feel to it, but with a twangy guitar intro. Didn't love that track that much. The next one, Feel You, I think really stood out. It has a piano-only intro, which I don't know many tracks of theirs that have. I know on Jim James' solo albums, his AEIOU, State of the Art, has that nice, cool piano intro before the heavy bass drop, and this one had a very similar song into it. The guitar playing, I wrote that it had a bit of a Neil Casal-ish sound to it with just less of the reverb and delay effect on top of it. It's another heavy, heavy track, which I think captures their sound really well. I believe I caught some strings playing in the background, which I thought was a really nice addition. I'm personally a sucker for any track with orchestral strings on top of it. Don't know if it was just from a MIDI or a synth that he was using to put that effect, but it fit really nicely. Caught his little Sweet Caroline tease in there with the lyrics, watching me, watching you, reaching out. And then again, it returned to a nice piano outro. This is one of my favorite tracks on the album. Next one is Beautiful Love, Wasn't Enough. Kind of a haunting old school piano intro with another like short staccato marchy feel to the track. Nothing really set home for me, didn't love it that much. Magic Bullet was another heavy, spacey, garage bandy intro. I couldn't understand what the hell he was saying, just like most of his albums that he does, but I'm excited to eventually have the lyrics on hand to know what he is saying, because I know songs like Steam Engines, which happens to be one of my favorite tracks of theirs, I didn't really know what the heck they were saying until I read the lyrics, and it is now one of my favorite songs by them. So maybe I'll have a turnaround with Magic Bullet. Builds into each instrument really nicely. Guitar playing has a really nice fuzz, like electronic-y fuzz to it, which I thought was really unique to this album. I think if you listen to any other My Morning Jacket albums outside of Evil Urges, it has more of a either heavy southern rock twang to it, or this just spacey, very heavy reverby, dreamlike state, where this was a different type of guitar playing. This was kind of, I described it as electro with fuzz. It's kind of, you just have to hear it to understand what I mean by that. But I thought this was a good track, and definitely why I like this album a little bit more than the last one. Run It went into a very smooth opening bass line. This is a really fun, kind of dancey-ish song. Reminded me of by George Michael of all songs, actually, but with more of a New Orleans feel to it. Piano, again, really shines through on this one, which I think is really turned down on other albums of theirs. In the middle, it's stripped down to just drums and vocals, which I thought was a really cool touch, so you could really hear Jim James' beautiful voice come through. And again, it's doing they do a lot by taking a little. So just his drums, just the drums and just his voice really worked nicely together. Wasted is another return to the southern rock roots. I noticed that Jim James isn't on the vocals to start the track. It's just a full band harmonizing. I don't know if his voice is even included on it. Can't think of many of their songs that have that, since he is such an integral part to their singing and is usually just the front man. I thought that was an interesting note to realize. If you haven't checked out the guitarist Carl, don't know his last name, Carl something, but his solo work is fantastic. So I'm actually surprised that they don't let Carl sing a little bit more on My Morning Jacket tracks, considering how great his voice is. But if you haven't checked out his stuff, definitely check it out. Let me know how you like it. There's a little piano ditty in the middle into immediately blistering guitar solo. This track was a little bit more of a return to the classic My Morning Jacket sound. Think One Big Holiday, that type of sound. It's good. I personally like them to hear. I would like to hear them do something a little bit different. The one thing I didn't like about the first Waterfall was that it just felt bland. It was nice and approachable, but there wasn't anything unique really happening at all there. So on this track, to hear them just kind of immediately go back to that old sound of theirs, I think it's, I don't want to call it lazy, but it's just nothing interesting or new there. Although I'm sure a lot of fans will like it, and it'll be nice to bust this out live. Welcome Home was a really nice, soft, beautiful acoustic track. Reminding me of just how fantastic Jim James is, solo and acoustic particularly. I caught him at Town Hall in New York City, and that was a purely acoustic show, and it was absolutely gorgeous. I went in there thinking, hey, I'm just going to go in for like half an hour or 45 minutes. I was exhausted that day, but I didn't want to pass up the tickets. Ended up sitting on the edge of my seat for the full hour, 45, 2 hours, however long that it was, hanging on to every word and every note, because he really is that special of a performer. And then I caught him at Bonnaroo last year. Not acoustic solo, but it was his solo act, but the one song that stood out particularly was when he did I'm Amazed. acoustically, and I think that this song, Welcome Home, is going to be another really special, purely acoustic song for him to play, and if you're lucky enough to hear it, I hope that you could catch this one. I know that I hope that I could see it. I thought it fit the Waterfall theme a bit more, with that kind of gentle, nature-y approach that I think they were going for. Not so much in this album, but definitely the last album. It's a simple tune, it hits the emotions right. Song about new beginnings, comfort of home. I thought this one was really nice. And then it went right into the last track, which was The First Time. Immediately, the intro reminded me of one of my favorite songs of them, Steam Engine. Airy vocals, dreamlike guitaring. The chords on top of each other just work. It's, again, I've said it a few times on this video already, but they just don't need to do a lot to sound so good, and this is a great example of that. Song immediately feels like you're kind of just drifting. And that's a theme that I had this entire album, just this drifting sensation, mainly because of the really strong outros and that you really hang on to every note by the end of it. Overall, if I had to do it out of 10, I'd give it a soft 7 maybe. Strong album. I like that it was really short. I'm particularly a sucker for albums that you could get through on one sitting and not eat away more than an hour of your day. I think this one clocked in maybe just under 40 minutes. So let me know how you guys liked it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And thank you for tuning in.